All right, last thing here. Really appreciate this interview. Really good stuff here from Bruno Reagan, former Vanderbilt player, and who knows, we could be seeing him very soon on your television in the USFL. Not sure when the hell that's going to kick off, but I keep, they're naming all these coaches. So next it's on to the players. Bruno's going to get into that, get into some of the Commodore talk, and I really appreciate Bruno. He's one of the most entertaining guys out there. But all right, hey, we're pleased to once again be joined by Bruno Reagan. He's the host of the afternoon stretch on WNSR here in Nashville, which you can find from 4 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. And you got to give him a follow at Bruno Reagan, which you can find in the show notes. He's a former Vanderbilt lineman, played in the XFL, I believe, and he's covered Vandy, the football team last year. So how's it going, Bruno? I really appreciate you joining us.
No problem. It's going good. Going about as good as it can go, I think.
Yeah. And hey, you got quite the bio, my man, but are we going to add USFL future star to that bio?
Well, I've been they told me yesterday they were going to send me the contract and it's today, so not yesterday, and I'm still waiting for it. So, I mean, that all comes down from Fox corporate and who knows how that works. I've been optimistic. I don't know if you've been keeping up with my posts, but I went from trashing the league to being optimistic about it. Now I'm pessimistic about it. And listen, I'm ready to play, but I'm not gonna. They ought to make it worth my while. I've been doing a bunch of. I've been really doing well for myself recently, so I have the itch. I want to play ball. I'm willing to take basically a massive paid down pay grade to do it, but I'm not gonna also do it for free. So there's that ebb and flow of it. Once I get that contract, I'll figure out. This is when you see my Twitter and my show. Like I try to do it with my bio to let people know, like, everything I say, take it with a grain of salt. It's all most of it's just for fun and entertainment and parody, and that's the way I like going about social media. I don't like taking it too serious. On this show, everything I say is going to be off the top of my head serious, just as a pure frame of reference. Because I talk to the USFL guys and they're like, "Oh, we see your Twitter. We thought you hated us," and I'm like, "I'm never gonna pass. I'm never in my life gonna just spit at opportunity presented to me. It'll never happen." So if people are having trouble separating those parts of my life, then there's your basically your warning for it.
Yeah, and I mean, I love your feed. I got to be honest with you. And I know Vanderbilt, it was not that entertaining this season, but hell, I had a much more entertaining time just going through your feed during the games because, I mean, you crack me up, just nonstop on Saturday night. It's usually when Vanderbilt's playing. So
Yep.
I want to start right there because not only Vanderbilt, but you also you like to tweet when Tennessee's playing. So what gives you more joy? A Vanderbilt win or a Tennessee loss?
By far a Vanderbilt win.
Okay.
The Tennessee thing, I really don't even have my beef was with like Butch Jones and not
Yeah.
offering me. I've never had beef. A lot of people like make fun of the Tennessee fan, obviously me included, but it's for fun. Like when they
Right.
send real jabs my way, it's tough for Tennessee fans because I mean I beat them 3 times, so usually I got stuff in the archives. But sometimes they get me good, and it's all in good fun. It's much love. I'm friends with a lot of the players, former coaches. My beef was just with Coach Jones and not offering me. Um, Other than that, it's mostly just all fun. I by far I want to see Vanderbilt win 10 times more than I'd ever watch Tennessee suffer and lose.
Gotcha, gotcha. Well, I got to ask you this too because after the Music City Bowl, I didn't catch all of it unfortunately, but there was the spaces with Pat McAfee. You were in there back and forth. And hey, everybody that does this loves Pat McAfee. He's the guy we look up to the most. So, how was that back and forth getting to talk with Pat?
Yeah, so that was definitely, I guess you could call a performance. I saw Pat post. I was driving home from the radio show to my judo club in Clarksville, and I was on my way basically from work to work, and I just get the notification for the space instantly the second it pops up. So I'm like the first guy in there talking about the Tennessee, how the referees might have screwed him over, and there
Uh-huh.
was all that trash talk from. It was very surprising that because they were practicing on Vanderbilt's field, so it's very interesting stories leading up to the Music City Bowl with Heupel and the players just taking shots at Vandy the whole time. So I was like, okay, this is my chance to just act a fool and just trash talk Tennessee at all costs. So that's the first thing I did. I mean, I was just like, of course they lost. Their mind wasn't in Purdue. It was all about they were Vanderbilt was in their head, which is it's a joke, but it was also kind of true. I took that chance, and Pat was a good sport about it. I definitely I took it up to 11. That was really fun. I love the spaces. The spaces are awesome.
Yeah, yeah, without a doubt. Well, on a more serious note, I know this is very tough to judge just based on, the roster and the program he inherited, but what's your overall thoughts on Clark Lee and the job he did his first year in Nashville?
I like Clark. I like Clark, and I like the staff. I mean, him bringing Bart Simmons was probably like. I mean, that was basically creating a GM role in the staff. Is I think that's a uber smart decision. You start to see it pick up with recruiting. Yeah, going into the season, I predicted like. I believe 3 wins was my prediction. So what, one off or right on the money? One of the two. Um, and it doesn't hurt. It doesn't make it hurt any less when it actually happens. Like even though you
Yeah.
predict it, because the roster's just not there yet. He's gonna need time, which sucks. Like we're not gonna know if he's really up to the task until not even next year, like 3, 4 years in. What you for a guy like him, you just need to see constant improvement. You just need to see that win column go up ever so slightly. Basically, what Derek Mason was doing. He came. I mean, just it was a total dumpster fire at first. Then we won 4 games. Then we won 5 games. Then we went to the bowl game. Then we had to step back and we went to the bowl game again. Though we looked better than we ever had. So you just need to see that progress.
Now, it's a long way off to the next season, but just based on what you've seen, and clearly this could change between now and then, but where would you go with the starting quarterback role there between Mike Wright and Ken Seals? Because
Oh
you know,
my gosh,
that's a
man,
tough
that is
question, you know?
it is a mega tough question, especially having watched I was at basically every spring practice, every game, a lot of the fall camp practices, and when you watch practice, Ken seems like the guy. He's much more poised. He makes great plays, make decisions, knows how to run it. And Mike was the backup then, so he was throwing a lot into double, just trying to prove himself. So he's taking extra risk. You trust his legs like way too much, and then come to the season, Ken, for what it's worth, I mean, obviously the whole team, it's hard to carry a whole team, especially as a quarterback. But
Right.
you've seen the not to make the unfair comparison, but you've seen the Matthew Stafford's do it in Detroit or whatever. Like they're trying to make something out of nothing, and they're still playing really well. Ken kind of, he had a sophomore slump, and whereas he definitely deserved to win the starting job. He did. I was at those practices. Naming him the starter was the right thing to do. But Mike comes in, and I mean, this dude's just an ultra competitor. He is trying to make stuff happen, which works against him sometimes, throwing, a silly turnover or a pick, but the team just looked better with Mike in it. So it's like, okay, we have this guy where maybe long term we might be better off with Ken, but Mike gives us his best chance to win. So what do we do? And in my experience, you always play the guy who gives you the best chance to win right now. So I think going with Mike a lot of the time was the right choice. Going into the season, my thing was they need to find their starting quarterback and stick with him. And of course, at the end of the season, we're back at square one. We're like, great, what do we do now? I think you try to bring in competition from the transfer portal since there's 100 million and one players in there, and they've recruit. I think they have one four star quarterback currently committed, so he might be able to compete early. And then you got Ken and Mike, and I mean it is gonna be the same old story, but competition brings out the better in people. So I hope one of these guys does win it a little earlier, and they can kind of take control of the team.
Are you surprised at all about how well Vanderbilt was able to recruit this year, or maybe not? Not were you? Okay.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know if you've when I was getting recruited, that was James Franklin years when they had the opening game at Ole Miss and opening game at South Carolina. I mean, it was crazy. It was absolutely electric what was going on. If you go to a Vanderbilt game now, it's like a morgue.
Yeah.
Watching them get trounced by ETSU by double digits was by far the most depressing thing I've ever seen in my life. I can't believe they convinced kids to come there. But what one thing that and that's just me being honest. But one thing that they have an advantage with is that school. That school is beautiful. It is an amazing place. I mean, when you're a student athlete, you live ball. Like I didn't care about anything other than ball. But when I did have to go to class, and when you're at Vanderbilt, you do. There's no, there's no Gen Ed 101 Swahili. Here's your free A. That ain't happening. But the Vanderbilt experience is so fun and awesome. And if you're up to the task to learn at that school, I mean, and the people you meet, it's ridiculous. Like the connections you can make. It's definitely an easy sell for maybe someone who can break that mold of, oh, I'm going to make it to the NFL, because realistically we're not. If you
Right.
even guys that go to Alabama and play well, a lot of them don't make it to the NFL. And even if they do make it to the NFL, I know a ton of 4 or 5 year NFL guys. You can't retire off 4 or 5 years league minimum NFL. You can buy a house and be set up well. You're not going to retire, right? So if you're a good player, you can make Vanderbilt work for you really well. So I was surprised that they were having so much success. And then I'm like, well, I mean, think back to when I was getting recruited and you're walking around those halls and you're like, okay, this is what snobby elitists like look like. This is what I would expect.
So safe to say your senior year there at Vanderbilt, you didn't just take ballroom dancing like some of these other
My
players?
senior year, so to be eligible for cost of living, which is the nice little like a thousand something dollar check they give you for, you
Mm-hmm.
have to take 9 hours. I didn't care about grad school at all. I could have finished half my grad school, and I guess I would have had to pay for the other half, which wouldn't have been too much, but I didn't care about getting a master's at all. I knew where my career was, and I knew that it was more entrepreneurial, whereas the degree is nice and it's a good look, but also a master's isn't going to get me where I want to be. So it wasn't a big deal. So basically, to get cost of attendance, I needed to take 9 hours, but I was like, heck no. So I took one class. It was my last class ever at Vanderbilt. So my entire senior year, I was in a Monday, Wednesday, Friday for an hour, and that was it, which was super nice. I was basically a pro football player at Vandy.
Nice. Well, I don't know if you've looked ahead to the next year's schedule or anything, but I'm wondering if we're going to see Bruno maybe at midfield or something for the season opener next year. It's at Hawaii. How hard do you want to go to that game?
No shot. If there's anyone, I hate traveling so
Yeah.
much with a passion. I cannot stand planes. I mean, I'm a big guy, right? So I can't stand it. I do it when it needs to be done. No shot you'll ever see me down in Honolulu, wherever that university's at. What a crazy experience that's going to be. I mean, they're going to have to leave 2 days early. That's nuts.
And looking at the SEC schedule, I don't know what the hell Vanderbilt did to piss off the SEC, but they open at Alabama, they come home, they play Ole Miss, and then the next SEC game's at Georgia. I mean, my God, it literally can't get any tougher. So, those games they're going to be picked to lose by a million points. But let's assume Vanderbilt snaps their SEC losing streak at some point next season. What team do you think they're most likely to beat?
It's got to be. I mean, we're historic. Recently, if you follow the recent history, it's going to be at the tail end of a season against a Missouri or Kentucky, Ole Miss or Tennessee. 100%, it's going to be one of those teams. Even when Ole Miss is good, we've snuck it against some good Ole Miss teams. It's just what it is. I think we end up playing Ole Miss at home, if I'm not
Yeah, Ole
mistaken.
Miss at home.
Yeah, so we've been really successful against Ole Miss at home in recent years. I would like it to be South. History tells us not Florida, not South Carolina. South Carolina, we're on a decade-long losing streak against them. We just cannot get it done against some of the worst South Carolina teams in history. So I would look for a Missouri or a Kentucky. That's what we did with Mason. Our first two SEC teams were Missouri and Kentucky. Boom, boom, 2015. So that's probably how it'll happen. Although Kentucky has found, I mean, they've taken their program up to right below Georgia in the SEC East in the Florida kind of realm. Um, that's how it's going to happen. It's not going to be against a West team other than Ole Miss, I believe, unless we can sneak a heck. I was going to say Arkansas, but that's out the window. It's just tough. This is tough. Win your OOC, try and sneak an SEC win. Then you're looking at a 4 or 5 win season. That's a victory for Clark Lee.
All right, last thing for Bruno, I really appreciate your time. I know you said it's too early to judge Clark Lee, and I agree 100%, but what's your confidence level that he's the right man for the job there in Nashville?
Well, out of 10, 9, because I don't like dealing uncertainties. If it's just ridiculous to say 10 out of 10. That's a homer move, and
Yeah.
so nine's about as homer as I can get while being objective. I like Clark Lee. I think he's hired a great staff. I mean, the energy there is through the roof. When you're coaching at Vanderbilt, you're coaching against the SEC, and you're also coaching against the Vanderbilt norms, which it's hard to explain to people, but the academic rigors, the fact that there's like, I mean, just life as a student athlete there is a little tougher. The school isn't necessarily on your side all the time. I don't know if you've seen the controversy with Vanderbilt basketball and their attendance. It's little things like that that just make no sense,
Mhm.
that just piss everybody off. But I'm big into Clarkley. I think I was advocating for him before he got the job, and after seeing the way he operates, I think he just brings a nice consistency to that team. Whereas I can get behind it as an alumni. I think he's the guy. It's definitely a great thing that he's an alumni because he has the extra investment. Whereas if he wins 6 games and some job offers him, he might not just tuck tail and dip at the slightest. So if we have that success, we could have some longevity with him too. I like it. Big fan.
All right, he's Bruno Reagan. Don't forget to check out the show, The Afternoon Stretch, WNSR, Nashville, 4 to 6 p.m., Monday to Friday. And I promise you, if you follow at Bruno Reagan, you are not going to be disappointed. Bruno, I appreciate you hopping on the show.
Thank you. No problem. I'm glad you enjoy the Twitter feed. That's all it's supposed to be, is fun. It costs me a lot of money sometimes, but it's fun.
All right, so just want to say thanks again, Bruno, for hopping on the line. Give him a follow at Bruno Reagan. You can find that in the show notes. If you're one of these people, if you're like me, you can't write anything down. I mean, who's got time for that these days? So we make it convenient for you. Put all the every guest we have, we got their Twitter handle in the bio, so go check that out. But hey, that's all we got for this week's shows. I hope you guys appreciated 5 episodes this week. I know we're in the dead of the off season. Some of these shows a little bit slow, but doing everything we can to pump up the content. And again, Shane and I are going to be on vacation next weekend. So the plan is to put out a couple of shows anyway. Going to pre-record a couple. We're going to try to do a National Signing Day podcast as well. May not have video for that one. I haven't figured out all the details, but if I can get that drunk Tennessee homer on the line, well, hell, he'd be standing next to me, so it should be pretty easy. So who knows what will happen down there in Orlando, but as long as we survive the trip, we'll be back before long. So just be on the lookout for a number of shows next week as well, hoping to get 2 or 3 out at the very least. But hey, that's going to do it for this week's shows. I do appreciate each and every one of you for your continued support, and we'll catch you on the next one.